The National Desk, America's News Now.
Chapel Hill on lockdown. A gunman takes to the University of North Carolina's campus and begins shooting, leaving a faculty member dead. What we know about the alleged shooter. The Trump trial train continues. The latest in a slew of trial dates has been set. Plus, Mark Meadows making his own plea to a judge. We'll have the very latest there. And then we head to Florida, where tropical storm is forecasted to be a major hurricane before it hits the Sunshine State. The timeline and the latest on evacuations.
We need to prepare for a major Category 3 hurricane to hit the Bay Area.
This is the National Desk, America's News Now. I'm Amira David. One faculty member at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, has been shot and killed by a gunman. After an hours-long lockdown on campus, this man, Tai Lei Chi, was arrested in a residential area. He's listed as a graduate student at the university. No other reports of injuries were listed as of this time. All campus activities have been given the all clear to return to normal operations. Former President Donald Trump's federal election interference trial has been set. A judge has tentatively scheduled it for March 4th, 2024, ignoring Trump's proposal to wait until 2026. That places it right in the heat of the presidential campaign. The trial date comes just a day before Super Tuesday, when voters in more than a dozen states, including California and Texas, head to the polls. So let's take a look at how that fits in with President Trump's legal calendar, which is filling up quite fast. October 23rd is the district attorney's proposed start of the Georgia 2020 election subversion case. Then you have Trump pushing for a later date on that one. On March 4th, as we reported, it's the start of the federal criminal trial in the 2020 election subversion case. March 25th marks the start of the New York criminal trial over Trump's alleged 2016 hush money scheme. And May 20th is the earliest scheduled start of the federal criminal trial in the Mar-a-Lago documents case. Meanwhile, Donald Trump and his 18 co-defendants in the Georgia 2020 election subversion case will all be arraigned a week from Wednesday. That's September 6th. Trump's arraignment will be held at 9:30 in the morning that day, followed by his former lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, shortly after. Unclear right now whether Trump and the others will appear in person. The court could allow virtual proceedings, or defendants can waive their right to appear altogether. We are getting a look into what these trials about the 2020 election interference in Georgia may look like, as former Trump Chief of Staff Mark Meadows took to the stand today for roughly 3.5 hours in an effort to move his case to a federal court. Meadows is one of the 19 co-defendants charged by Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis. The prosecution tried to tie Meadows to many conspiracies, including the effort to hatch a fake electors scheme. Meadows testified that he did not coordinate those efforts. Republicans are moving closer right now to proposing an impeachment inquiry against President Biden. It could be brought up on the House floor as early as next month if some have their way, and it adds to a list of problems both leading candidates for presidents now face. Chief political correspondent Scott Thuman shows us how. Scott?
Lawmakers may still be on summer recess, but that doesn't mean they aren't toiling away behind the scenes. In this case, Republicans going after President Biden using a most serious method.
Will you bring an impeachment inquiry against President Biden this September?
He said he never had any dealings with his son's business, and that he never even talked to him. We've now found out not only did he call into the meetings, he went to dinner, and after the dinner, Hunter Biden got a new Porsche. It is a natural step forward that you would have to go to an impeachment inquiry.
More reports indicating the GOP now working on logistics and schedules on how that could become a reality.
Well, I have a message for Joe Biden this morning. We're coming for you. And if you will not answer the questions for the American people, the Oversight Committee will answer them for you.
Biden, despite being booed in the background, defiant and pointing out Donald Trump's troubles, mocking the former president's mugshot.
Handsome guy. Wonderful guy.
Biden's supporters urging voters to let economic progress be their guide.
The president has a right to be very proud of many of the accomplishments that we've achieved in the last 3 years. Unemployment very, very low. We brought inflation down. We're investing in clean energy.
Yet the growing in popularity group No Labels looking to give voters another option as they consider forming a bipartisan or independent ticket, even eyeing a convention in April, which could play spoiler in a tight race. And then there's the factor of age. Donald Trump, 77, President Biden, 80. And a new Associated Press NORC poll shows that while voters are concerned over each of them, they're overwhelmingly worried that President Biden would not be able to be effective for all 4 years if reelected. It was 77% of people expressing that worry. Amira?
Wow. And Scott, what is the White House saying about the push for impeachment right now?
They're calling it a baseless political stunt. The White House today saying that they are happy to work with members of Congress from both sides of the aisle on bipartisan legislation that benefits all Americans. They say this does not do that.
All right, Scott Thuman in D.C. for us. Thank you for always keeping us informed. In West Virginia, Governor Jim Justice declared a state of emergency after multiple counties received excessive rainfall over the weekend into today. Many homes, bridges, and roads have been damaged, and the National Guard, in fact, has been activated to help with those recovery operations. Meantime, Florida bracing for impact. Tropical storm Idalia could become a major hurricane before hitting the Gulf Coast tomorrow or Wednesday. Parts of Florida's west coast and panhandle and parts of Georgia and the Carolinas could get 4 to 8 inches of rain. Water could rise up to 9 feet in some cases. Several counties have issued evacuation orders. President Biden has approved an emergency declaration for the state, and Governor Ron DeSantis, well, he is warning residents.
This is going to be a major impact, and Floridians should expect that this storm will be a major Cat 3+ hurricane. So please prepare accordingly.
Meanwhile, Hurricane Franklin is causing dangerous surf conditions and rip currents along the southeast coast, and that's forecast to spread to the entire east coast. Franklin continuing to strengthen today, and it had 145-mile-an-hour winds this afternoon as it traveled north. It's expected to gradually weaken very soon. Louisiana is now battling the largest wildfire in its history. The Tiger Island fire is burning more than 33,000 acres after it doubled in size over the weekend. At least one person has died and at least 20 buildings have been destroyed. The fire is only 50% contained. As for those Maui fires, Hawaiian Electric, it is defending its actions leading up to the incident. Its stock, in fact, jumped more than 40% today after it revealed power lines in West Maui had been off for hours before a fire reignited and burned through Lahaina. The utility did take responsibility for an initial blaze, but blamed county firefighters for declaring it extinguished and leaving. And let's take a look at Maui by the numbers right now. 115 people are confirmed dead. At this point, 43 of them identified publicly. More than 2,000 structures destroyed, 20 hotels serving as shelter for displaced residents, while more than 11,000 people have registered for assistance from FEMA. Florida law enforcement is reviewing security at Edward Waters University in Jacksonville after a fatal shooting at a nearby Dollar General on Saturday. 21-year-old Ryan Christopher Palmeter used racial slurs and stopped at the historically black college before killing 3 black people and himself. The DOJ is investigating the attack as a hate crime. Governor Ron DeSantis gave an update on Florida's response today.
I'm pleased to be able to announce we're going to be able to do $1 million to Edward Waters College to increase security on campus. As I've said for the last couple of days, we are not going to allow our HBCUs to be targeted.
DeSantis also saying $100,000 will go towards supporting the victims' families. 2 people have died, at least 4 others injured when a sheriff's helicopter crashed into a Pompano Beach apartment in Miami today. This video was taken nearby, and you can see the black smoke, and one of the fatalities was part of the 3-man crew on board. The other was a woman who died when the helicopter crashed into her home. Officials say the helicopter experienced engine failure as it went down. California's Attorney General is suing a Southern California school district. Chino Valley Unified School Board requires schools to inform parents of any changes their children request regarding how they are treated by gender. This includes different pronouns or using alternate bathrooms. Attorney General Rob Bonta called this act forced outing and says this is a violation of the students' civil rights. The trial against the father of the 4th of July 22 Highland Park shooter will go forward. A judge refused the motion to dismiss made by Robert Crimo Jr.'s lawyers in court today. The judge also said he was open to cameras in court with live streaming of the proceedings. Crimo Jr. pled guilty on 7 counts of reckless conduct earlier this year. Prosecutors allege he helped his son, Robert Crimo III, obtain a gun license, even though the younger of the two had a history of threatening violence. The trial is scheduled to begin on November 6th. A late summer wave of coronavirus infections persists as experts warn the public to brace for more COVID-19 spread this fall and winter. Now, here's what the most recent data is telling us. 24% in terms of an uptick in hospitalizations in the last 2 weeks, the period ending on August 12th. Most of the major increases happening in the Northeast. Massachusetts seeing more than a 100% climb in hospital admissions. Vermont more than 89%, and Rhode Island 55%. But the good news, says experts, is that the latest uptick is still relatively small when compared to years past, with the sick experiencing more mild symptoms. It comes as China announces it will drop its requirement for a negative COVID-19 test result for international visitors starting this Wednesday. It's the latest step in the country's efforts to slowly end its pandemic-era restrictions that began nearly 4 years ago. And coming up, it's the 60th anniversary of Martin Luther King Jr.'s historic I Have a Dream speech, how our country's leaders are commemorating the occasion. Then a meat allergy linked to tick bites is on the rise, where experts say it's exploding, and what to look for to know if you have it. Then anxiety and depression among kids and teens has skyrocketed in recent years. The early warning signs parents need to know. Today is the 60th anniversary of the 1963 March on Washington, where Martin Luther King Jr. gave his historic I Have a Dream speech. Thousands converged in D.C. this past Saturday to celebrate. Today, President Biden and Vice President Harris met with the family of MLK and other civil rights leaders at the White House. Biden stressing the need for continued effort towards racial equality. Meantime, the president and the First Lady visited students at Elliott Hine Middle School in Washington, D.C. to celebrate the first day of school in the district. For Dr. Jill Biden, this is the first of a series of back-to-school activities. Later this week, she'll visit schools in Indianapolis as well as Madison, Wisconsin, to bring awareness to mental health support and to celebrate teachers and educators. Real estate giant Zillow is predicting prices will continue to go up and jump by 6.5% by next July. Price increases have averaged 5.5% over the last 5 decades. There's limited inventory, which has bolstered competition and sent prices soaring. Houses are also selling faster. Homes have come off the market in 12 days. That's a week and a half faster than the typical rate back in 2018 and 2019. We will get a fresh read on inflation this week from the Commerce Department, a report closely watched by members of the Federal Reserve who are considering even more interest rate hikes. And national correspondent Atra Al-Nashar reports on the toll already high rates are taking.
Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell acknowledging the country's economic outlook is uncertain.
As is often the case, we are navigating by the stars under cloudy skies.
The effects of the Fed's interest rate hikes are hard to ignore. Mortgage rates are at their highest level since 2001, according to Freddie Mac, and the average APR on a new credit card is 24.37%, according to LendingTree.
And we will keep at it until the job is done.
Even higher rates could freeze out first-time home buyers, slow consumer spending, and constrain small businesses. Economic forecasts and recession predictions are in flux, some more optimistic than others. Canadian businessman Kevin O'Leary, who became a household name on the show Shark Tank,
tomorrow morning when I wake up, I'll still be Mr. Wonderful.
Expects the economy to take a hit later this year as regional banks, still on shaky ground, are reluctant to issue loans.
You're going to start to see some real chaos come September, October, November. This is an issue for Congress, Larry. It's very simple. They gave all their money to the S&P 500 in 2 acts.
O'Leary referring to the CHIPS and Science Act, which passed with considerable bipartisan support, and the Inflation Reduction Act, which passed with only Democratic support.
$1 trillion for the big boys, nothing for the small guys. And the small guys, they run America.
Both laws, however, do include funding or incentives for small businesses, like the Inflation Reduction Act's increased tax credits for their research and development. But it is the trillions in government spending from the early days of the pandemic to now that many economists say turbocharge the demand that's contributing to this current stubbornly high cycle of inflation and the interest rate increases that followed. On Capitol Hill, I'm Atra Al-Nashar for the National Desk, America's News Now.
8 U.S. Marines remain in the hospital after a crash in Australia yesterday that killed 3 of their colleagues. Officials say their Osprey aircraft crashed while on a routine training mission. 20 survivors were flown to a hospital. 12 have been discharged so far as investigators work to uncover what went wrong here. The crash calls into question the safety of using the Osprey, which is a relatively new type of aircraft that comes with a patchy record of safety. Before yesterday's incident, there had been 5 fatal crashes of Marine Ospreys since 2012, causing 16 deaths. The latest was in June of 2022, when 5 Marines died in a crash in a remote part of California. A report determined a mechanical failure was to blame. And it comes as we learn the identity of the Marine who was killed last week when his combat jet crashed near a San Diego base during a training flight. Major Andrew Metler, also known as Simple Jack, was piloting an FA-18 Hornet when it went down. An investigation into the cause of that crash is underway. U.S. Commerce Secretary Gina Raimondo is in China for a 3-day visit in an effort to warm relations over economic concerns. Today, China agreed to exchange information with the U.S. on export controls, but so far no progress has been made on intellectual property security, human rights violations, or the lingering tariff war. Meantime, in Spain, prosecutors of the country's top criminal court have opened a preliminary investigation into Spanish football chief Luis Rubiales' forcible kiss on the lips of World Cup player Jenny Hermoso. They say they're looking into whether it constitutes a crime of sexual assault. Already, FIFA has suspended Rubiales for 90 days as it investigates the conduct. This is the National Desk, America's News Now. We have reporters all across the country in your neighborhoods covering issues that matter most to you. We are taking the pulse of America. A record number of participants took part in this year's Bill Keating Jr. Great Ohio River Swim. About 240 swimmers jumped into the Ohio River from Serpentine Wall in Cincinnati. The swim benefits the organization Adventure Crew, which gets kids from 24 area high schools out and engaged with nature. The swim was named after Keating, the late prominent community member and former swimmer in 2017. During the event, the Ohio River was closed to motorized traffic. The meat allergy called alpha-gal syndrome is on the rise, and in Virginia, health officials say it's exploding. Those diagnosed have to avoid eating meat from hooved animals. In some cases, dairy and some medications can cause a reaction. A Virginia Department of Health vet says the allergy is linked to tick bites, specifically from Lone Star ticks.
Well, we do have a lot of Lone Star ticks in Virginia, so we think that's driving a lot of what we're seeing in Virginia when it comes to alpha-gal and people testing positive for alpha-gal.
The allergic reaction happens 2 to 6 hours after eating something containing alpha-gal. The best way to avoid getting the syndrome is to avoid getting bitten by a tick. The Springfield, Ohio community is remembering the life of the 11-year-old boy who died after a school bus crash last week. Aiden James Clark's funeral was scheduled for today at a local church. The obituary says he was a truly unique, caring, and inquisitive soul and was one of the most awesome and exceptional 11-year-olds in existence. Coming up here, anxiety and depression among kids and teens is skyrocketing. The newest data and the early warning signs to look out for. CTE, the degenerative brain disease often linked to football and other contact sports, is more prevalent than previously thought. A new study published today by JAMA Neurology shows that more than 40% of high school and collegiate athletes say that playing these sports contained repetitive head impacts, and those folks had CTE. CTE can only be found in brain tissue after death. These 152 participants showed cognitive and behavioral symptoms before they died. The CDC now reports the number of children and adolescents with anxiety and depression has jumped 30% in recent years. In the last decade, the number of teens and young adults with depression has doubled. To help turn this trend around, mental health providers say parents need to intervene as early as possible. Liz Bonus has more.
Hey there, everybody. The warning signs can be different in each child, providers say, but knowing a child is critical to recognizing them.
Having two boys with autism and other things is very challenging, if I'm being honest.
Hi. Say hi, boo. Tamika Runyon knew her two boys, AJ and Avery, well enough to realize when they needed mental health help as a family.
You know, I think we're kind of hard on ourselves sometimes. It's really hard. It really is.
She says the mental health team here at Ohio's Cincinnati Children's Hospital that provided the family's video got them through this time of crisis.
We've seen firsthand the heartbreak and frustration families feel when they can't get help.
The early warning signs?
With kids, I start to think about anything that seems like it's a change from their normal socialization with peers, a change in their relationship with families, a change in relationship with things they enjoy doing. Could be an early sign that would lead you to want to ask some more questions.
Those warning signs so prevalent now, the team here recently expanded to become the largest inpatient mental health provider for any children's hospital in the country. They took me inside on a tour at today's opening.
1 child in 5 has a diagnosable condition. 1 in 10 young people are disabled because of their mental illness. Suicide is the second leading cause of death of youth. And access to care is so spotty that over half of our children across the nation do not get the care they need.
Luckily, Tamika Runyon says her boys continue to get the mental health help they need. She says recognizing behavior changes helped her reach out to change those kinds of outcomes in her family.
Regardless of what they're going through today, they've come a long way, and they're doing so good.
Now, just a reminder, the 988 number always available as a first step, 24/7 for crisis intervention. That number now available in both English and Spanish by text and phone. I'm medical reporter Liz Bonus. Back to you.
And coming up, the U.S. Open is on. How many tennis fans a New York City venue is expecting to welcome this year when we come back? The U.S. Open begins today. Tennis fans packed the Billie Jean King National Tennis Center in New York City for the start of the tournament. It's star player Novak Djokovic's first U.S. Open in 2 years after he couldn't compete last year due to COVID vaccine rules. More than 900,000 people expected to attend. That's all for now. I'm Amira David. Thank you so much for watching.